Hey, welcome back to another tutorial. This time I wanted to go over the default items within a brand new world to show you what they do and what they're used for, so that you can be more aware when looking through the root of your inspector within a world. This is a request from someone on Discord. I unfortunately cannot remember your name right now. If it's you, leave a comment. I'll update the video description to let them know that, to let everyone know that you sent me here. Let's get going. So I'm going to hop over here into Smooth POV, and I'm going to equip my developer tooltip, and I'm just going to open up the context menu with nothing selected and hit Open Inspector. This will get me to the world root, and then we can talk about what's inside the world root and what it all means. So this is a default space world root. The root will vary slightly depending on which template you use. They usually have the same concepts, etc., but this one has a few extra things. So let's get going. So the first thing you'll see at the top under root is the word controllers. Now controllers has a locomotion modules folder in it, which contains all of the locomotion modules which you can use in the world. So you'll see here walk around with climbing, fly, no clip, and teleport. These are the standard locomotion modules that will exist in a brand new world. If you don't want a locomotion module, you can go ahead and delete this slot and it will not then be available to users who joined the world. If you're interested on restricting locomotion modules to certain roles, there is a way to do that using the permission system. I will link a video in the video description that goes through that. If you select the controllers folder that's above here, or controller slot, there is also the simple user spawn, comment to avatar builder, and that's it on that slot. The simple user spawn and common avatar builder controls how avatars and user spawning are done by default in a world. So by default, the user spawn is always in the center of the world here at usually 000, which is where this box is. If you have no spawn area or spawn point in the world, then it will default to that location. Never ever ever delete simple user spawn or common avatar builder, or indeed the controllers folder, as it will disable locomotion modules from being sort of logical and set up in your world. There's lots of options here, which I kind of go over in various permission-related videos, so I will link to those in the video description. Beneath this is roles. The roles folder has nothing on top of it, but beneath it are roles. Roles I cover in my permission video series, so I'll link that in the video description. Below that is clipboard importer, which has the clipboard importer component on it. This controls clipboard importing, which is when you paste something into the world from either your clipboard or another world. Don't delete this. Skybox is the skybox of the world. I go over skyboxes a little bit in the video creation, world creation tutorial series, so I'll link that in the video description. Lots of links for this one. That's because this is sort of a high-level basic tutorial to sort of show you what's going on. It's just a skybox. You can delete this, but weird things will happen. If you want the skybox to look differently, change the skybox. Don't delete the skybox. Next, that is light. This should actually really be called sun, and renamed to sun, but it doesn't make sense in space for it to be called sun, but that's basically what it is. A directional light, particularly a directional light that's set up like this, is acting like a sun. It's the main light source, and in fact the only light source currently in this world, so all light is being generated by this directional light source, and you can see it here, because I've selected it. Once I've selected it and the gizmo appears, you can also put this star at the end here, this like a glowy ball, and it will change into the light inspector, and then you'll see this arrow and you can drag it around to change where the sun is, etc. You can also use the sun mover tip for this. I talk about that more in the world creation tutorial. I don't recommend deleting this because it's good to always have a default sun even if you're building, but you can turn it off if you want to control lighting yourself. There's not much difference in this world because it uses a lot of sort of bright materials, but in a world that uses a lot of just regular PBS, you'd see the world go completely dark. Super useful for horror maps to turn that off, or interior maps where you want it to be controlled by yourself and not the sun. Beneath that is ground circle. You might see this as grid or some other items in other worlds. It's usually circle or something like that. That's the default platform that you start on in Space World. It's just a circle that has a texture on it. In the default empty, it's more sort of a curved sort of display or diorama plate sort of thing. And in the grid world, it's a grid that extends sort of off into the horizon on all directions. You can remove this, and in fact I recommend removing it once you've started creating your world, but do make sure that you have set up colliders for the land that you do want people to land on, or spawn points if you want them to land on that. I'll link a video about controlling world collisions a little bit better. It's the first tutorial I ever recorded, so that'll be an interesting one to see. That'll be in the video description, as will one about spawn points again. Beneath this is decorations. Decorations is unique to the space world. It is what controls these cubes flying around. I often delete these cubes when I'm using a space world as a base because they are distracting. They can provide a visual effect. They're meant to signify to new users the capabilities of Neo straight off the bat, right? You launch into a space world and it's clear that you're in somewhere special. So you can go ahead and delete those. Beneath that, you'll see me. I am in orange. I struggle reading this sometimes, so I just go ahead and select it, which makes it easier to read because it appears at the top here. It's just a colorblind thing. Users that appear in the world are there. I will go through, a user structure in a different video, but all users will be there unless you've sort of configured a spawn point or other system that will parent them differently. _ temp is for temporary objects. I don't remember what gets stored here, but again, don't delete it. It's very needed in the world for it to be there. Don't delete it. Just leave it alone. Beneath that is assets. Now, assets is what's sort of called a lookup table. What it does is any assets within the world that are used by multiple objects are often moved to the assets folder such that they can be looked up. This is also what makes, when you delete something in the world, it not break all the assets. So a common example being if you spawn a material, set a cube to that material, and then delete that material orb, the material orb, instead of being truly deleted, will be moved to the assets folder so that it can still be referred to, but it doesn't really exist in the world. That's also what happens when you use the pink trash can. If you use the red trash can on the inspector, it will delete it without preserving the assets. And if you use the pink trash can, it will delete it preserving the assets. There is a inspector sort of redesign and UI update coming somewhere in Neosys future to make that clearer. Right now, you kind of just need to have the tribal knowledge or read through this help article here to talk about the pink and red trash cans. I have an overview of the developer tooltip, which I'll link in the video description, which also might help with that. Don't delete the assets folder, and more importantly, don't put anything inside it either. Leave it to be organized by itself. Beneath that is the undo manager. Undo manager is the undo manager. It controls the undo steps. So if I go ahead and in the world, I make a cube, and then I delete the cube, I can then undo destroying that cube using the undo option of my context menu, and the cube will come back. The undo manager stores undo steps. Private UI is on, doesn't need to be on, there we go. It lists undo steps for each user and what they did, etc. If you've ever got a question about who deleted something in a world, you can often come in here and take a look. It's sometimes confusing to read, especially when it gets batched in. Batched are multiple operations that happen at once that need to be all undone at the same time. But here you can see spawn or destroy, and I can select it, and it's like I spawned something. I spawned a dev tooltip. I totally did. I spawned a dev tooltip. We can go through here. We can see a lot of update transforms. Not quite sure what those are. There's the box which I destroyed. And you can even see the box here because it's still on root now that I've undone that destroy. So you can sometimes see and figure it out. I wouldn't recommend making a habit out of it, but it's there if you need it. It's listed by users. Let me delete that box. That's really it for a brand new world. I hope that's sort of helpful. Oh, the other thing to note is that on the root slot, there is a lot of objects that will probably become less and less over the years of Neosys development. Again, I don't recommend looking at them. There's lots of sort of assets, font chains, and root objects there you really don't need to look at most of the time. There's the locale provider and all sorts of things like that that control localization within a world, fonts within a world, some various assets and materials that you, again, don't really need to look at. Just know that they're there and that they exist. That's really it for a default world hierarchy. I hope you found that useful. I will see you again next time.